Well, NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. It's typically asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, and it's like, how likely are you to recommend X brand or X product to a friend or to family, or sometimes to a colleague? It's typically calculated as the net of the promoters minus the detractors. So typically the detractors are going to be those who rate 0 to 6 on that 0 to 10 scale. Promoters are those who rate a 9 or 10. And those who are 7 or 8 are considered to be passive or neutral, and they're excluded from the calculation. And the calculation is basically the 9 to 10 minus the 0 to 6 percentages. So if 50% of your scores are 9 or a 10, and 30% of your scores are 0 to 6, the NPS would be a 20.
It measures customer loyalty. It's a word of mouth growth potential type of customer loyalty. But there's definitely some caution that needs to be exercised in terms of taking it too literally. So this is a hypothetical question. It's about a future intention, not actual behavior. And there's actually been studies that show that it can both underpredict actual behaviors of recommendations, and it can both overpredict whether people are going to recommend something. I also think that it's so commonly asked these days that probably a lot of people simply answer it in terms of general satisfaction with this brand or with this company, and I'm not going to think too carefully about whether I would actually promote this or recommend it to someone I know.
When I look at NPS, I really think about, that I think the composite metric, the actual NPS calculation is important, but I like to look at the movement. So if I'm a brand, right, and I'm seeing my NPS get better, right, become more positive, is it because I am having fewer detractors, right, at the bottom end of the scale, or is it because I'm really converting people that were like in that 7, 8 range to be promoters? And I think that tells a very different story for a company about what they're doing well, how they're improving, right? If you are moving people from 0 to 6 into 7 and 8, which would improve your NPS, that means you're not making people upset, but you're not exactly knocking it out of the park when it comes to your customer experience. On the other hand, if you're moving people from 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, then maybe there's some initiative or some change that you've made that really is pushing the needle and is sort of making people think that you are a leader in this space. From a method standpoint, people's attention spans are short. You only have so many questions to ask in a survey. And if I'm surveying an HR benefit decision maker, like let's just get down to business, right? Do you really want to know how likely they are to recommend your brand to people in a similar role, right? So a brand perception, sort of evangelism, or do you actually want to know whether they're going to renew with you for the following year? And to me, depending on the business case for the survey, you might choose one over the other. And I think if you are really trying to understand churn, lost accounts, competitive position in the marketplace, it might just be better to just get to it and say, how likely are you to choose us again? I have fairly strong reactions to NPS. I don't really like the metric. I think I don't know, Greg, you probably know off the top of your head better than I do, but the vast majority of Americans get their health insurance through their employer. It's an employer-based health insurance program in the United States. So we're sitting here asking people who the vast majority don't have a choice of their health plan, how likely would you be to recommend your health carrier to your friends and family? And, their family doesn't work at their employer. They don't have the same choices. And even if they have the same company, they may not have the same plan. So I think it's a limited use case, I think, in the health side in terms of where it might apply. I think the direct market, for sure. I think in some ways the Medicare space, a lot of opportunity there because people are shopping and trying to determine what Med Advantage plan they're going with or what Med Sup coverage. But for employer-based coverage, I think it's really tough if you keep the wording exactly as it is.